Welcome to yet another episode with Ray and I. Ray, you're starting the charge today, but before we get into that, how you doing?
Good, man. So we were just talking before the recording started. I just found the perfect physical therapist, massage therapist I've always been looking for. This guy is the most magical human with his fingers you've ever witnessed before. Like, he was touching me, making my nerves jump to revive some of my shoulder issues. It was incredible, man. So actually today I had the best workout I've had in a long time.
Nice. Like, so when did you go see him?
So I saw him on Wednesday.
Oh, snap. So it was like real fast.
Yeah. So I saw him on Wednesday and he's like, maybe you should take tomorrow off. And I had to take yesterday off anyways. And so today was the first day back since I saw him. And for the issues that you know about, it's probably the best workout I've had in a very long time, which shows that what he did is on the right track, right? So that's going to be feedback I give him on our next session. And he told me, he said, come back, tell me what you felt. If things feel better, then great. We're on the right track and now we're just going to sprint.
Yeah, nice. That was, that was like that chiro that I found way back when I had my like sciatica pains and all that. And so much of it just comes down to like and I think between you and I, we've kissed a lot of frogs before we found like our person. For me, I don't know about you, but for me, so much of it came down to just like them actually listening, like, right. And then actually listening, and then going, okay, well, based off of what I just heard, this is the treatment here, as opposed to, and which kind of, circles back to last episode, rather than like, yeah, sure. Just lay on the damn table and then just let me get to work.
The thing that gives me a lot of anxiety is I had a guy before him who I paid for an hour session. He would talk for half of it and do maybe 4 things to me in that session. And every session I had a lot of anxiety. And I even gave him feedback. I was like, hey man, do you think we could do more in a session and maybe talk a little bit less? But the thing that was so great is that guy I saw on Wednesday is he was able to explain to me what he was doing, why he was doing it, as he was just jam-packing all these tests, these triggers, these movements, these nerve stretches as well. It was honestly the best experience I've ever had from any physical therapist. And I've been to quite a few. Did
you get homework?
So I did not. He told me the only homework was to work out. Now, so what I did was 2 months ago, I just booked appointments with all the best people in my area. And I've just been trialing each one to see who I like. And it just so happens like he's like number 6 I've trialed. And just like dating, like I found like the perfect guy, the perfect agency for some of your brands. Like it just takes some of that dating, unfortunately. Yeah,
totally. You gotta find your one. It doesn't just show up at your doorstep. That's for sure. Yeah, man. Hey, you're kicking us off topic wise too. What are we covering today?
Okay, so the one that I prepped today was actually a recent win that our team has done. And so what we're going to go over is the ad account structure, the strategy, how well it performed, the landing page, and even the creatives. And this ties in really well because if anyone has watched us previously, they've heard how we do our product launches. And this is going to be a great overview of how we do that. So D is the first time he is seeing some of this stuff. He might have seen some of the wins in the Slack channel, but it's the first time he's seen all the details of how it played out.
Yeah, for sure. And at one point we got to get Shmori on here so that he can talk about his schmuck smesh story.
Yes, that would actually be a really good session as well. So the bit of context here is Shmori is one of our strategists, and he's the one that executed this plan. And we've been working with this brand for 7 to 9 months. And so the context is this is a combination of all of the efforts over a long period of time. Like it wasn't like a first month working with us, everything worked. We've done many launches since then, but this particular one was a combination of a lot of changes and implementation on the brand side and our side. Okay. All right. So the context I want you to see, D, and I'm not sure if you saw this in our Slack channel, is so this brand just had their biggest month they've ever had off one drop. So in US dollars, it'll be $600K by the time the month is out. So just looking at the comparison, just to kind of paint a really great picture for you, that's a 300% increase in a month.
Yeah.
and revenue. So in 1 month. Now, one thing I want to bring up is that increase has happened over, like I said, the 7 to 9 months of acquiring customers, doing product launches, acquiring customers, doing product launches. And the one thing I want to show you, D, that I thought was pretty amazing is, I am going to scroll, so sorry, Kim, is a lot of those people were new. Look at that. 28%, only 28% were returning. So what that means is that Shmori and his team really changed up the strategy this launch, and they had acquired a lot more new customers than previous launches. And that's actually pretty good. Like normally you see in a product launch, most of it's returning, but this one, most of it was new.
Yeah. And that's such a fundamental piece for any brand that is building up towards any type of sale event, because as you are acquiring new customers, you're not only acquiring them for that first time purchase, they also enter into your email list. And now you're able to tap them a second time, a third time, a fourth time, build that advocacy, or at least build that fandom as well. So I think it's difficult to talk about, at least if you're thinking about it right. If you're only slamming on paid social, it's difficult to not, for us at least, to not talk about then also how the email side of things helps that next run and the run after that. So there is a compounding effect rather than just hitting first time purchasers and then just chasing that and just staring at NCAC, for example. Right.
You know, it's funny to hear you say that. Do you remember a person who used to work for us? Remember Yana? That was her name, remember?
Oh, yeah.
So it's funny you say that, because one of the brands that we're known for doing $2 million in a day, that brand, but that was a year in the making. We did probably 6 product launches, collection launches over a year. Each one got bigger. It's like that snowball got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think you brought up a really great point, is that email is, in my opinion, when it comes to a brand that does launches, it's the backbone of that snowball getting bigger and doing it really well. But also, it goes without saying, having the understanding and the patience that I need to see the payoff over a long period of time. Because like that $2 million in a day, that brand, it was not like that in the beginning. But over a long period of time of using this product launch strategy, it grew into that. And yeah, back on the backbone of that was frankly email and SMS.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Shall we have a look at some of the other stuff as well?
Yes. Okay. So what I want to do next is I kind of want to break down the strategy so people can follow themselves. So you saw the results, the big $600,000 in 1 month. Now what I wanted to show you is how we actually made that happen. So the first part of our product launch strategy is actually in the planning. And then the second part to that is actually in the buildup. So what the heck is the buildup? Well, the buildup is in the ad account is when you are running campaigns to get people opted into some kind of a club, a VIP list. You can name it whatever you want. We've had one brand call it the side chick list. We've had other brands call it clubs, other brands call it VIP lists. But that's the important, is you want it to be exclusive, feel exclusive, and some way for them to opt in. So for example, here is actually our ad account structure that we ran in the last 30 days, is we call it the tease. So in our funnel, when we build up for a launch, we spend a lot of money and budget teasing people into that club, that list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the ads. So we want completely, almost for one campaign, we targeted their best converting countries. So that's US, Australia, Great Britain, Canada, France. And so the benefit of this guy, this brand, is he's a big influencer on Instagram and TikTok. He has a lot of followers. So he does get purchases from those countries. So the first thing we did is we pulled up his customer lists, email, SMS, past purchasers, combined them into one. And then we also went to cold audiences. And what we ran we ran early access ads. Early access ads like this, where what we did is he made a content piece talking about his collection, the products he's going to give away, the products that you can buy. And he added a time window on when you would get access to that. So a short period of time. And I think that is a big part of the strategy, is adding in that scarcity and the time window necessary. Because otherwise, if they know it's going to be available forever, it may not have as much of an emotional drive to purchase, versus knowing that, crap, like I've got 24 hours or 48 hours to take advantage of this. That really changes purchase behavior.
And I'm really glad that you're showcasing this right now, because finally we can reveal, just by looking at the creative, how niche this brand is in terms of product type. So it's not fashion, it's not apparel, it's not skincare, it's not wellness, it's not any of that. It literally is the things that you're seeing in front of us right now, which, and I'm excited to talk about, to tie this in later, because of the fact that this past week, I was over in Sydney for a small meta event, 30-something people at the workshop, and then probably just eight people at this white paper roundtable thing. It went really well. It was all about cross-border trade. They're pushing that really hard this year. But point being, when you're trying to sell, when we're trying to market for something like that, what you just showed, it's not exactly just try to sell to everyone.
Can't.
You got to be very, very specific. And one of the key talking points at the Meta event, which is super validating for us, is instead of aiming for share of market, the way that they phrase it is start to shrink the market to get focused, rather than trying to sell to anyone and everyone, which I think any marketer that knows what the heck they're doing, that really should be their first port of call anyway, to go, well, what is the messaging? Who are the people that are likely to be interested even to buy this stuff, right? Because it's not exactly close. It's not exactly wide appeal.
Yeah.
If
few people are going to want this. If
you put that in front of our wives, you and I, and be like, hey, honey, I want to buy one of these. I don't know about you, but my wife would be like, we're not getting that. We're not adding a Sub-Zero mask into the house.
Oh, it looks so good. She would tell me, she said, you can buy it, but it goes in your office.
It goes, right, exactly. Exactly. Nowhere in the house besides your little man cave.
So it's funny you say that. I was having a conversation with actually two different t-shirt brands. And there's a point this, I promise, this past week. And they're talking about their struggles of scaling and profitability. And so I shared some parts of our fashion scaling playbook, which is exactly what you said, which is you have to niche down. And some of the best brands that we've ever worked with, not just fashion, but any brand, is they go really deep in the niche. So for example, we worked with brands who were very pro-American patriotic. That was their niche, their theme. And they just went a mile deep on that and built up a raving fan base and community around that. We've had others that went very ghetto. That is their niche. And they're massive brands. Some of these are really big brands. So I think that's a really great learning that our team has to think about, and that I think other brands should think about, is that niching down is actually where you're going to get your success versus trying to be a mass appeal, like a big TAM.
Yeah. How does the saying go? Niches are in the riches are in the niches. For those people that say niche, I'm like, where is the T in there? But that's a whole other topic.
But using this brand, for example, again, you may think there's not a lot of people that who would buy it. The world is still a very big place. And there's a lot of sub niches, and Sub-Zero. There's a lot of people that love Mortal Kombat. You may not know them, but there's a lot of them out there.
For sure. And here's the thing to keep in mind as well. The daily active user count on Facebook, across Meta products, if I'm not wrong, the daily active user count is in the 3 billion mark.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Daily active users, 3 billion, right? Now,
I wonder what the breakup is of Facebook old and Instagram, right? I know they're the same, but I'm curious about those two properties.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I'm super curious about that too. And we don't have a young Jamie like Joe Rogan does to look it up right now.
Hey, Jamie, look that up.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Jamie, put it up on the screen right now. But point being that it's and especially with the way that this brand was targeting as well, it went, okay, let's go geo broader, but messaging to identify, and that, to be able to then go that way, to rather than going, let's kind of water down the messaging or try to go for like mass appeal, and then go for certain geos one by one instead as well.
Well, one thing I'd love to hear what they mentioned this at the Meta event, but why this is important in this brand that had the great success is we actually find that when you have a brand like this that is quite niche, we find it actually helps with stability to just group all the best countries into one campaign, and then to just hone in the audience from there, either broad or some kind of other type of targeting, versus trying to break out campaigns to just every country and then do it that way.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we had a bit of a conversation around this at the roundtable. Like, so much of it also on the back end of the business there needs to be ducks that are lined up in a row to be able to enable such a sale to happen. And just for context too, $600,000 or almost $600,000 American for this brand, which is an Aussie brand, that's almost $1 million.
Yes.
Right. And you talk about this all the time. What are the game changers to break through to go to that next level, the plateau breakers? Exactly this we're seeing it in motion, which is so exciting for them, because I think this is their biggest month sale event ever. Right. And it's March.
Yeah.
It's not even like a Black Friday type of thing. You don't have to wait till the end of the year, which is why I love our product drop playbook so much, and also love when brands have that as part of their business model, where they can drop products at a certain time seasonally, which is so helpful. But yeah, I mean, point being, for a brand like this to be able to then go, okay, on the back end, for us to successfully do this and hit our $1 million month, we need to make sure that we can ship to these geographies within the time. Yes. So that we don't have a whole bunch of splashback or a whole bunch of refunds, because it's like, and our customer customer support team isn't just getting slammed by where the hell is my order, right? I got excited about the drop, and then now it's like, 90 days later, where the hell is my stuff? So kudos to them too for sorting that part out, as well as the stuff that we do, right?
And that's exactly right. The other thing they did a really good job of sorting out, and again, this is over 7-9 months, is these are easy products to make. They make them in-house. So what that means is they've done a really good job on the back end of the logistics of how they make these things faster, but then also really good job of setting expectations with the customers. And he says it in the video, they said it on the page, they say it after you purchase. Thanks for the order, because it's actually a pre-order, meaning you're going to buy it, we're going to make it, and then we're going to ship it. And for them, they found out that's a much better model than, let me make 100 of these things or 200 of these things first and then sell it. They're selling it first and then they're making it, but just setting really good expectations all throughout the purchase experience.
Yeah. And this is why I'm excited to get Shmori. I love how creative we're getting with these things now. Anyway, I'm excited to get Shmori on one of these episodes, because I'm so curious to ask him about how he thought through and worked with the brand on messaging based off of awareness levels, for example. Like, how do you even break that thing down? What was your thought process there? And what are plans for messaging moving forward into the future too? Like, I mean, so You showed the ad account and how we structured that. You showed the creative, how we structured that. What was the post click experience like?
Great question. So just a refresher, here was the ad. Now, I want to make sure something's really clear is the benefit of another reason why this works so well is all the pre-planning that went into it from him. Like he's actually has a lot of followers on TikTok, on Instagram. So he's kind of already proven his audience. There's reputation. There's a profile where you can actually see him make this stuff. So it's not a new product that's never been launched and then now we're just trying to sling it and make money. No, like he's been working at this for a long period of time. So it makes the messaging more direct this way versus having to educate new people. Now, the post-click experience, part of our product drop playbook is every time we do a drop, we always send people to a lander. Now, just as having tested this so many times, we always have a countdown timer on that lander of when it goes live by. The reason why is our preference every time we do a drop is to add some amount of scarcity to it. Meaning, either you get first access, or we're only making 1,000 of these, or it's only good for like what he did. You only get early access for 24 hours for the pre-order, right? So there's a lot of scarcity added to it. So a person, when they land on it, it gives the emotional feeling of if I do not put in my email address now, I will not be part of it, right? So they have to make a conscious decision, which is also why people that opt into that club, VIP list, whatever you want to call it, every time we've done this, it's often 25% or more conversion rate of those people. So that's like 1 in every 4 people that opt into this buy on average.
Yeah. If you are not T-Swift, how do you orchestrate or engineer your own frenzy moment where, oh my God, T-Swift is coming into town. I better sit on this website. And the moment it goes live, I'm just hitting the button to be able to buy tickets for it. And same type of deal. T-Swift, not her first year that type of stuff happened. It's across time. But point being, it's the same psychological principles of grabbing the moment when it arises because it's not constantly available. And it doesn't have to be just a discount offer. It doesn't have to be this heavily discounted offer, right? It is, and again, it's one of those things. When you become, it's one thing to lure people in, like customers into your ecosystem through discounts or through giveaways, and say, for a marketer to say, hey boss, look at all these numbers. How awesome. Like, look at all these people that came in. But then following that, when you start looking at cohorts, I do wonder for brands that are on that discount drug, I do wonder what their cohort analysis looks like in terms of, right? What is LTV? What is repeat purchase? And what is also value of each customer? And whether they only come back when they're waiting for that next discount rotation. Because as consumers, we kind of know what the timing is. For the brands that we follow, we're like, oh, every twice a year, they drop a discount anyway. And it's not like, there's nothing really that special. I just like their stuff. So I'll just wait. Compared
it's
to
so important to do
this.
That too. Like, for example, I don't know if I mentioned this in the last conversation we had, but there's a girl on our team, let's call her Susie. She has, I'm changing up this time. Let's say she has a brand that we work with. And what's interesting is we actually did analysis of their customers, new versus returning, how many times they buy. And the reason we did it this way is because we found that new customers on average were worth $250, but returning customers were worth $650. Over a 2x multiple of how much more they were worth. And the reason we were doing that is we're trying to find out how can we make this brand more marginal gross profit or contribution profit. And as soon as we saw that, we're like, we could afford to spend way more on new customers because, to add to your point, because we looked at that and we did that analysis. So that means we could even push really, really hard on new customers, break even. But if we give them like a really good incentive over the next 30 to 60 days, we're going to make way much more money over those 30, 60 days. And we know they're going to buy from us more times after that because the cohort shows us that once they buy at least a second time, the likelihood of them buying again.
Yes. And I love applying that frame of mind, in SaaS and mainly in tech and growth marketing in tech. The growth marketers always talk about the aha moment, right? So for any product, like especially for a freemium product or a free product, they're always obsessing and thinking about what is the aha moment that will make our product sticky for a user. Like Canva, for example, right? It starts off freemium, but they know it's not. And fortunately, I got to hang out with I got a pal who joined Canva in the early days as a product manager, really close friend of mine, Paul. And I got to hang out with their head of paid social, KL, this week as well. And you hear the way that they think through product, and in tech, they have a very different game. If you're offering freemium or you're offering free for the first part, you'll notice a lot of these freemium ones, they'll take you through some type of tour or they'll gamify it so that it's like, start your onboarding now, get 100 points to finish your onboarding. Like, do this one thing first, like try a new design or try one of our templates to get them to that aha moment. Much in the same way, early days Facebook, they found that if a user adds 5 friends, and I might be misquoting the number, but it's like, if within that first login, they add 5 friends, they're more likely to stick around. And, look at where Facebook is now, right? In terms of the suite of stuff. But, Chamath, he has so many videos talking about early days of Facebook and how they tried to find that aha moment. Much in the same way for us in D2C, we're looking for that aha moment of a customer to go, oh, wait, let me stick around. Let me actually be an ongoing customer of this brand rather than just like a transactional. All right, I'm in, I'm done. See you later. I'm never going to come back again.
I think that's another reason why I'm such a big fan and proponent of, if you can afford it and the cash flow supports it and the cohort supports it, get aggressive with the new customers you acquire, even if you're making little margin or no margin. Again, if you can afford it, because for most of our brands, either this brand or other brands, the aha moment only comes when you get it in their hands. So if you want more ahas and more higher value people, then that's get it in their hands as aggressively as you possibly can. We've talked about this so many times on this podcast. That's why I'm a huge fan of, can you change up your model like these guys that we've been showing? They change up their model so that instead of only making 100 or 200, I'm going to change up my back-end logistics so I can make a lot, but I'll make it once they order it, and then I'll put it in more hands of more people, and then they're more than likely to buy it from me again.
Yes. And again, the back-end part of the business is so, a D2C business is so important, because the opposite can happen if you don't put due respect to product. What I mean is it can get in their hands and then their aha is, I actually don't quite like this.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's post-purchase surveys. That's all those elements that we have at our disposal, those tools to then go, okay, well, how do we go find out what is happening using marketing as a channel to be able to do so, bring that information back home so that the brand can then start to get information and data around, what do we need to change on our product side also to appeal to the existing customer base, the people that have put out their wallets and bought. And here's the thing. If you have angry customers, that's one thing. At least you have a feedback loop. What happens to most brands isn't that they have angry customers. Usually shipping is the thing that pisses people off, right? But what happens to most brands when it comes to product is that you just don't hear from them ever again. Exactly. Which is almost like a silent death. You don't even know why. And that's where, if you don't go out and get data, it then becomes the opinion of the people in that room who are very, very close to their own product to be like, someone will say like, I think it's the packaging. I tried it at home. I showed it to my wife. She didn't like the packaging. And then sample size of 1. And then some other person be like, it didn't smell good because I put it in my face, whatever. As opposed to going to polling existing customers or polling the email list to find out like, one, what got you here in the first place? Two, I've heard of brand founders that actually like picked up the phone and called every customer.
I love that. Also, how shareable is your product? For example, this product, I can tell you now,
oh my God.
every dude who buys that is taking a picture of it, posting it, skimming their background of their streaming channel. High shareability, high bragging as well. They want everyone to see it because who's going to buy that product and they don't want people to see it? No, they want people to see it. Versus if you bought a squatty potty 8 years ago, no one's going to take a picture of a squatty potty under your toilet. So I think that also helps too, is how shareable is your product? Because the more shareable it is, you'll probably get that feedback loop you were talking about because people want to show it off and they want to talk about it.
Totally. And the thing is, the showability does not have to be, does not necessarily have to be in the shareability, and the showability doesn't have to be in the product, the coolness of the product itself. It could be the results of using your product, for example.
Correct. Yes.
Right. So like, someone who might sit here, and I'm going to cover the brand name because like you guys aren't sponsoring us, but something like this, for example, if you guys can see this, it's just like a D3K2 vitamin drop, vitamin D, D3K2. The effects of that, oh my God, I tried it. And then now like my skin's clearing up or whatever. And they start telling people about that. That could be a foothold into for that word of mouth component on social as well. So it's not necessary, don't watch this and think, well, I got to make my stuff so outlandish or so shareable and start chasing that as the thing. It's all about quality product, whichever vertical that you happen to be in.
I think a good testament is if people aren't coming back to buy from you and they're not referring friends, you have a massive product problem. So that's where you should focus your attention on versus more traffic and more money.
Yeah, for sure. And you can go in stages too, right? Start with, are people coming back? And then go into, are people advocates? You can go one by one. It doesn't have to be both. You can attack one and then go on into the other and start looking at it from a product standpoint, start looking at it from a shipping standpoint. It just comes down to production and distribution on that side, really. Those are the main two things. And some packaging too, right? Because I think there's something to be said about a very nice unboxing experience. I wish we got to do that more, like on here.
That'd be a fun one to do. We should just buy some products, ship it to my house, ship it to your house.
Oh man,
and share how the experience was.
I would love to get budget to do that like all the time. And if we ever have guests, ship them one out as well, and then we can just like do an unboxing like segment.
That's a great idea.
That'd be like so super fun.
So let's do this. I'm dying to hear about what happened at the Meta event. You've teased it 4 times now, and it's all I can think about. So I'm dying here. You got to tell me what happened. I know you slacked me. You talked to heavy hitters while you're there. So what was the Meta event about, and what were some of your takeaways?
Yeah. So the premise was, okay, how do we help Aussie brand marketers connect better, right? So I was chatting to Lucinda, our rep. Luce, love you. You are so amazing. Like an actual like human for a rep. Like anyway, I can go on.
You're a rare gem. That's all I
yeah, I can go on about Luce forever. Anyway, and then before that, we've always had like very fortunate in terms of really lucky with reps on the Meta side. So I was talking to Luce about this for a while, and she was like, "Hey, listen, I think you'd add value into this room. We're gonna put a few people into the room, talk about cross-border trade, and our aim is to put out some type of white paper, right? And we don't want it to be agency heavy. We need it to be brand side." I'm like, "Why do you want me?" It's like, "Well, we think that you've got like something to like, what the work that you guys do, you've got something to say here." So performance marketers from Canva, Princess Polly, publicly listed company. I still can't believe that Canva's still a private company, but anyway, their share prices will be insanity. Anyway, Canva, Princess Polly, Booty, Culture Kings, which is now their head of marketing is actually, he moved himself to Orange County just to be able to get boots on the ground there. Quad lock, which is sold in like 100 different countries, right? Essentially phone clip to the back, but because
that's who they are. Gotcha.
Right. But for your car, for your stroller, for your bicycle, you can just go interchangeable across all of them. Canva, Princess Polly, Booty, Quad Lock. I really don't want to miss any other ones in there.
Culture Kings?
Yeah, Culture Kings. Our buddies my buddy at least, Jack from Growth Hunter, which happens to be another agency, and they're like ex-Facebook employees. Super sharp and always love jamming with them. Who else was in the room? That was mainly it. Those are the names that I can list off the top of my head right now in terms of brand names. And we just got to sit down, small room, spend an hour and a half, just exchanging tips around cross-border. And the really fascinating thing is so much of where our brands would love to get to, right? These guys are facing the same similar struggles as well, right? As an example, and this is where things get really fascinating. I was talking to Kim, head of marketing at Princess Polly, when she first started, for a good year or something, and I might be butchering the duration. She was running all accounts on her own.
When you say all accounts, like all channels,
like
paid and email and all that?
Search, social, email, and by social, they were on Snap because like Snap was back. This was back then, like pre-TikTok. And what was really impressive for me was the fact that she went from that with a bit of agency help to now running a team of 18.
Wow.
Right, successfully, which not a lot of individual contributors managed to do well, because most individual contributors don't necessarily make good managers because they have
good on the tools, but they're not good at managing.
They're not good at like developing people, managing them, giving them autonomy, like all that type of stuff, right? But yeah, it's just fascinating because then you have Culture Kings, a reseller of product, right? Because they're all about the kicks and apparel. And for them, brick and mortar was such a big part of their strategy, by way of, we have brick and mortar store. There's this wow experience whenever people come in. And the way that they built their name over here was also allocating budget for like Drake to come to the store.
Oh, okay.
And then having
they have their own stores, right? It's like Culture King.
Yeah, Culture King, exactly. And they're trying to replicate that. They had like a Lambo giveaway. So they went really, really hard in understanding that culture. Here in Australia, now moving over to the US, it's a different story. One, it's highly competitive in the US compared to Australia, relatively speaking. The TAM is bigger, just even from a population size standpoint. But the challenge now is demographically, the US is so dramatically different state to state, and even pockets within a state. It's so dramatically different, right? Like just even from a societal standpoint and from an ethnicity standpoint, messaging starts to become a really different game. We've seen this firsthand, like you said.
Did they explain how? I know like spellings are different in some words, but can you give examples that you guys talked about on going from like Australia to the US?
Yeah, for sure. I think spelling is one, but then also vernacular as well. For example, and also some legalese too. For example, I was talking to the head of marketing for Booty, which is, so it's organic bamboo fabric underwear.
Okay.
Right. And they're a B Corp as well. So, and for them, they're in the UK, in the US, and here in Australia. Now the nuance starts to become, and it's the stuff that we know, but I'm glad that we're talking about this because I think we might take it for granted that we know because of the work that we do. In Australia, they call them undies. In the UK, they call them knickers. Right? In the US, they don't call them undies nor knickers. So if you start using that language, one, that will already go, wait, that sounds a bit weird. I don't talk like that. I don't even immediately recognize what it
You
is.
know, it's funny because undies, it's more of a thing for little kids. Like my interpretation, like you say undies if it's like for a little boy, a little girl, right?
Right.
You don't say it for yourself.
Right. Whereas over here, that's, undies, brekkie, like that type of stuff. Everything ends with an IE. So you've got that. Also, you can't say organic bamboo in the US legally. It has to be called something else completely. So learn that. The fascinating thing though is culturally. So for example, in the usual thinking for Aussie brands or for stateside brands going cross-border is our winter is American summer, UK summer, and their summer is our winter. So we can use the same kind of messaging as an Australian brand. We can talk about staying warm inside, so selling long sleeve clothing and all that. The issue is in the UK, most places it's cold outside. It's actually hot inside at home. So if you go with the stay warm inside thing, already you would have missed the mark because they're all actually warm indoors. It's just almost every household. Whereas here in Australia, most of the time there is hardly any central heating. Most homes don't have a fireplace. And we usually just let the house kind of stay cold, and we just put clothes on instead. So then Udi, that's the other brand. Sigrid from Udi was there as well. And Sigrid was saying, for us, the messaging was save on your power bills. Get an Udi instead. So it's all these types of cultural nuance that you have to understand in that region. Kim from Princess Polly, for example, she's German. And so when a lot of teeth whitening ads started showing up from most of the like Australia, US, etc., teeth whitening, that term, if it's directly translated to German, apparently means something completely different. So already the brand looks like a pretender. So it's stuff like that we managed to talk about. And then we moved on to, and I'm going to share my screen here. We moved on to a bit of a show and tell by Meta. And maybe we can start wrapping here. I don't know how. Is this big enough for you? Let me go a bit.
No, you have to zoom in. There you go. I can see it now.
Yeah. So this is what they're pushing in terms of the way that they're talking about cross-border trade or talking about moving into any new territory, right? So it's like a from and to type of a thing.
So help me explain. What are some of these new twos? Because I'm sure they had context with those. Yes. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yes. So what they're trying to say is, instead of going physical availability or mental availability by way of like having a store presence or anything like that, it's how does your brand become more discoverable across the feed, across the different types of properties that Meta has, and then they kind of piece discoverability and culture carrying. So instead of you don't have to be a brand leader like to win. You can start winning just by being a culture carrier. Those two things is their way of saying engage with creators, right?
Okay, so
for that
collaborations, right? To tap into
and that's that's them talking about partnership ads. That's them talking about that's them talking about like using the algo to go broad so that you have that discoverability piece. It is a Meta conference after all. So they're like, it's all like our product or product.
You know what makes it really interesting? I just want to add something to this is it kind of shocks me how little I see Meta typically push collaborations. What I mean by that is people who give them money on advertising, how little I see them actually recommending, hey, you should collaborate with this person who's like in a similar niche and they're also spending a lot of money on ads. It would be a really great collaboration to have that swap. It would make them more money as well. It would also help them be part of the conversation of do more collaborations so you can be like their word culture carrier.
Yeah, I think that mainly has to do with what is the top-down kind of agenda, right? The top-down agenda really for this year seems to be cross-border trade as well as creator marketplace. So they're pushing those two things really hard. So I guess it's one of those things where it's like, well, pick your battles. these are the things to kind of push on. Naturally, Performance 5 was part of it too. But
question, when they mention cross-border, are they meaning spend more money in other countries? Is that what they mean?
They're meaning if you're looking to expand, remember Meta's back then Facebook, their first mandate was to shrink the world.
Correct.
Remember, so I guess now it's time for commerce to do the same. To go, how do we get these brands and help them reach international waters? Because the technology is kind of moving that way, right? Like the distribution is easier than before, like 10, 20 years ago. So many of these businesses, like D2C, was like impossible almost.
Did they share any kind of stats around like how many people in their native country actually ever spent money outside of it? That would be a really interesting stat, and maybe they told it to you.
No, so they didn't. A lot of it wasn't so much around stats like that. Stats for them. Again, it is a Meta Summit,
right?
Right.
But, there must be a reason, a data point that they have to say, hey, maybe these 10 brands went cross border, and over 2 years they spent 60% more money. They must have some kind of data point that says that us and the brands will make more money if we can get them to push other countries because it converts more, lower cost, whatever that is.
Right. And you would imagine, especially somewhere like in Australia, where from a population standpoint, for every one Aussie that lives here, there are 14 Americans.
Yes.
So it makes so much sense for that to be an agenda push here. But these are the types of stats they show essentially to go like user product, right? Like use shops, use partnership ads, use ASC. What was exciting for me was this one in here. And maybe we can close on this. Where is it? Let me see if I can find this guy. Like shrinking the market was a really big thing, but to then get, there we go. One of my favorite talks for the day, to then get someone from Meta Marketing Science to come in.
Oh, yes.
And it's the stuff that we talk about, right? Like where to be able to get those gains that we saw with the brand that we're talking about today and all the other different types of product drops. So much of it is iterative, and so much of it is test, learn, deploy, adjust for the next one, test, learn, deploy, adjust for the next one, cyclical. So in terms of measuring success, learn fast and as cheap as possible. So essentially don't go and like get a whole bunch of above the line out of home campaigns and go immediately to that. How do we do it in a cost effective way? Testing is the best research. Exploration over optimization, which is what you were talking about. Once you can understand what your end CAC threshold is, to then go, well, how do we explore first? And then once we find that, we can then start to optimize. And then this one down here, like, give more room for testing. Marketing science team I love how you can highlight text in a photo now, by the way. But marketing science team over at Meta, they're interfacing with like enterprise level brands, publicly listed companies, et cetera. So they're having to convince them at that level. We're no different whenever we're having to talk to our brands about that type of stuff. But allowing the tests to fail and keep context of a growing market. The slide that I really like on here, and we get access to the slides, by the way. We got a bit nerdy for a second around like holdout tests and A/B cells, but this one right here is another one that I really like. The whole, my agency tried it or my marketing team tried it. It just straight up didn't work, as opposed to getting the learnings from how it didn't work and what does that mean for next time, rather than just throwing it away and going to a completely different pasture. Right.
And that's in the context there of going cross border, right?
Yeah.
I really like that. I just want to inject here just for a second, because how many times have we had a brand either in the US or UK when they go to different countries? It's never ever been, we turn the light switch, ads start running in that country, and it starts working. It's never gone that way. It takes a much long period of time because you have to change different strategies, different languaging. You said that, different content, creative models. Like it is a very much an iterative exploration, and there's a process to it that we follow. Don't get me wrong, I'm not just randomly doing stuff, but it never just turns on. And so you have to work at it to then get that traction. So that's really interesting that they're also saying that for Meta.
Yeah, absolutely. And where is this slide that I like a lot? This one. So now we're starting to get into numbers. So where if you don't look at, and this goes back to the type of cohort analysis that we're doing as well. Anyone who has been in this game for a while would kind of understand what an adoption curve is, right? So you have your early adopters, you have then the kind of mainstream people, and then you got the laggards at the very end. I'm oversimplifying here. When you are moving into a new market, those people that buy your early adopters, if you go, oh, we didn't hit target or whatever else it might be, let's move on to a completely different thing and disregard those early adopters, like there's a reason why they came in early. What is that reason? And how do you find out? Right? And to then have that next go around be stronger and the go around after that. So every customer ceases to just be a number on a Shopify dashboard and turns into someone who is, who holds some information and data that's useful for your team to extract and learn from, to then move on into the next one. So by pulling the pin too early, or by saying, and I love this line here, right? You shouldn't pay more for a new customer than they're worth. Absolutely. But at the same time, you're likely not capturing the importance of early evangelists for long-term success. That's why the LTV part is just as important as the CAC part.
Did they share any kind of benchmarks around the time it takes to get into a new market?
It's so dramatically different. I guess because exactly what you said, right? It depends on vertical, notoriety, how much budget to. So at the round table, several of the brands there have a very aggressive seeding program and an influencer program, not just lumped into one. So they have a team that all they do day in, day out is just seed product and have quotas to hit. So like 100 a week, 100 a day, right? To then be able to start seeding. Exactly. And then that's separate from their influencer program or their creator program, which is a whole other piece altogether. And then separate from the PR program.
What timeline would you say it's taken the brands we've worked with to crack a new market?
Wow. The variance is so high, though.
Yes, it is.
The variance is so high. Like July knew from the very beginning where they wanted to go. I think that's the other part too. It's those with the ones that have a business strategy and know what their business strategy is year 1, year 2, year 3, with an objective, with a goal, with different like types of key results they need to see per quarter. I think those are the ones where it's like, okay, it's not an unknown amount of time, feel it out. It really is, okay, let's actually stay on pace, follow the plan, and then pivot accordingly. But we're still keeping that timeline to maintain some type of creative tension. And then you've got the ones that are just kind of like, well, let's feel this market out, or let's kind of look for signals. And then based off of those signals, then invest into, say, a small batch to ship over to that geo so that we can fulfill shipping promises and timelines, and then go accordingly. And then some have budget to actually be like, let's also invest in creators in that region. Right. So it's such a, how long is a piece of string? Because it really depends on business objective, capital availability, and how aggressive they want to go. Like, what are their grand plans? And the tricky part is really finding either manufacturing partners or shipping and logistics partners that are trustworthy, that can actually fulfill in time and in good shape too. Nat does a lot. My wife does exclusively online shopping, and the amount of times that we have packages show up where the box is just like crumpled. Right.
Are they international orders?
Some are international and some are local. It's really such a mixed bag, but it's those types of things that we then have to collaborate with the brand on, because you can line all the ads up, but if they're still testing out 3PL partners and that occurs, it makes so much more business sense for us to switch ads off for the moment to sort that part out. Otherwise, they're just burning. They could be burning customers. That's a choice. That's something a founder or a brand owner might be like. That's something we have. We really care about customer experience. So let's go that way. So long way of saying, how long is a damn piece of string? I don't know. Like, have you seen timelines that fall into a pattern?
There's no pattern, but I'd say typically err on the side of caution. It's like a 5 or 6 month investment to break into a new market where you see traction. Now, I'm not talking about profitability. Some do it sooner. But for example, like we mentioned, July luggage. Way before they ever went to the US, they were investing in PR, content creators, collaborations.
Oh, man, all that.
So they invested years before they even brought into the US, right? So there was a lot of that seeding that happened before. And other brands that we have brought into the US, turning out ads wasn't enough. But once you start getting other content creators, product seeding in that country, you can even get like affiliates, that's when you start to see that momentum increase. But it's not a quick thing. It's like a 5 or 6 months to really crack into where you feel like you have stability to actually scale and grow.
Yes.
That's what I've seen.
And unit economics and ad economics too, right? So
yes,
this is, I love this slide. I know I said we might end here, but I just chanced upon this slide as while you were talking. That's Ben. He is the CMO for Quadlock, and this is them talking about CPA is better when brand equity is high. In Australia, they're an Australian brand, like a $48 CPA versus an $81 CPA.
Wow.
In the US, but that's a region that they're trying to crack. So they're using that as, instead of going, screw it, we're just like, something's really, really wrong. It's them being more surgical, or at least more forensic, and going, what is causing that? They're not trying to slam just what is the first 3-second hook, or what are these ads talking about, or what's the copy, or what's the CTA at that micro level. They're going, no one knows us there.
No.
So if no one knows us there, what can we do outside of within the ad unit itself? What can we do to lower that CPA based off of things that live in the ecosystem but are not directly inside of the ad itself, right? So they are now. This was Ben talking about the fact that they use Meta tools to actually do brand lift studies, to actually do recall studies, to actually, to put some science behind it rather than gut feel, or just get reactive and be like, this number sucks, ad team, just do better.
Yeah. And I think one thing that's important to know on this slide is if they were only looking at it from a CPA perspective, they would have stopped running ads there from like the first month, and they just would have stayed in Australia. But the fact that they understand the investment's going to take, it's going to be a long tail effect where in the beginning CPAs are going to suck, but over a gradual period of time, it's going to come down as that brand equity increases.
Yes. And by the way, I mean, Quadlock is everywhere, right? So they know a thing or two about what they're doing. But I also understand how difficult and by the way, all of their marketing dollars, most of the D2C brands, they all say the same thing, which is whenever we spend marketing dollars, because of the types of businesses that we are, every dollar spent has to bring dollars back. So we're not traditional old school where we can go awareness only, reach and frequency, out of home, and then not justify some type of return. We still have to bring it back home somehow to justifying a return or showcasing a return. That's the challenge, and that's the Rubik's Cube that we're trying to fix. So it's just a difference of scale, really, right? Between the brands that we interface with and talk to, or like the people that hit us up in DMs, against these types of players. But point being, it's still the same challenge. Like the physics of the market still apply, and the tools to be able to get there still apply. It's the ones that respect the timeline and that understand the effort that goes into it, seems to be pattern, the ones that break through to the other side. Otherwise, it's just like getting stuck on these drugs, slam more ads, or staying in the ad unit itself, right?
I think my favorite takeaway is hearing these brands they know where they want to get to, and they understand the investment it's going to take to make it happen, and also the timeline it's going to take, but they know that they will crack it when they do is going to obviously help their business. But I think that was a really good takeaway, is to see those big brands and they recognize, yes, the cost is worse, but I also know it's a necessary path I have to take if I eventually want to have scale in that new country.
Yeah. So which kind of plays to exactly what the marketing science presentation was about: exploration and then optimization, rather than expecting to go in hot. I mean, yeah, I think that is just setting yourself up to fail, or at least setting your expectations a bit too high, too far from reality.
It's the wrong expectations for yourself. Yeah, you're setting yourself up to fail because you have these unmatched expectations. I'm just going to crack it in the first month.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man. So that was my Sydney trip. I'll keep everyone. We'll see how the video goes, the meta video, and the cross-border white paper goes. And then hopefully we can get to share it with our audience as well.
That'd be dope.
That would be so good. All right, man. I think a good time to wrap it up here.
Yeah, and surprisingly, we didn't plan it, but everything meshed together really well. Cross-border product drop, cross-border meta talk.
Exactly. So good. All right, dude. Thanks as always. Good to jam. And for everyone here, if you like what you saw today, please give us a like and a subscribe. It helps us reach more people and help more people across. And we really appreciate you supporting the channel. And if you have any questions or just want to give us some feedback, we'll see you in the comments. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Ray.